is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another late night in the BrewLab with me, Lone Fox, your brewmaster in chief. And tonight in the BrewLab, we're going through all of the colors from WUBRG now that the set has been completely spoiled, and I'm going to be picking my favorite card at each rarity in each color. So we've just gone and done the blue one. So of course, what is next as far as the WUBRG acronym? White, blue, black. So we're going to be looking at black, and of course we're going to be starting at the bottom at the common rarity. So without further ado, let's jump right into it, shall we? Favorite card in the common rarity from WUBRG in the black color, for me, without a shadow of a doubt, has to be the Agate Blade Assassin. This deck is looking so freaking fun. I was skeptical at first, but now that the whole set has been spoiled and that I've spent enough time tinkering away with Arena to see what we have already from this tribe, I think Lizards are the ones that was most designed to synergize with the most recent set in Standard, Outlaws of Thunder Junction. You know, the mice and the squirrels and the little... That's definitely more Eldraine. You can see from the tribes and the synergies and the play patterns. When it comes to Lizards, though, it seemed a little lackluster. There's almost no Lizards from Eldraine. But then, in the Outlaws of Thunder Junction, we got this very strong, you know, already I was thinking there was that guy, like a laughing Jasper or something like that. Jasper Flint. And he's like this cackling lizard. And there's a few, like even that 4-drop that gives all of your outlaws haste is also a lizard. Like, so then straight away I was like, okay, they've shown us some not as good as the other tribe stuff from this set, but then when you pair them with the support and synergies from the stuff from Outlaws of Thunder Junction, now lizards actually look pretty good. And you'll notice that most of the good lizards from WUBRG happen to be outlaws. So, and they happen to do a lot of crime doing. We'll get to another example of that in black in this very, list. So this being a 2-mana 1/3, so fairly good, blocker and not embarrassing attacker, because you can attack without immediately knowing that you'll die in combat with the 3 toughness. Yes, you're not really getting in for that damage, but if you squint at this sideways, it's essentially a 2-mana 2/3 with lifelink-ish, right? Because whenever it attacks, if it does get through for the damage, it's 1 point of damage. Plus you've pinged them for 1, and you've gained 1. So it's essentially almost like a 2-mana, what I just said. And there's so many other lizards that care about you dealing the opponent, that the opponent has lost a bit of life, and it's nice that it cares about it at like different points in the game. It's not all just focused on the combat, attack, or now that the damage has been done, all of the triggers happen during like the combat step. Some of them care about it like before combat or after in your main phases or during the opponent's turn. So it's going to be, I think it's going to be a really fun deck to play. And probably the more budget earlier versions, then we'll end up figuring out which is the actual best 2-drop to play in the lizards. But in the meanwhile, like, this is not embarrassing. It'll immediately trigger all of your lizard gain, opponent has lost life this turn synergies, as well as not being like a not embarrassing blocker and whatnot. So this ended up being my pick for best black common of the set. Next up, as far as uncommon, this just right away, like for my kind of magic, there was 1 or 2 others that were really close. There's some super strong black uncommons, as well as like the typical 2-mana removal spell. There's 2 versions, one's a sorcery, one's an instant, just from this set alone, that are both honestly freaking good. But just in terms of the way that I like to play these, like generally aggressively slanted, tribal kind of combo-y, creature type matters decks, having something like this, which at instant speed during the opponent's turn, end step, boop, Cast this thing, you're going to be able to return 2 of the little squirrels, the cute little friggin' whatever lizards. This is going to be playable in Rakdos, Golgari, all of the aggressive decks that also splash black in them. Bam. You're going to not only drain your opponent, which might activate stuff that you have during, on your board, your enchantments and artifacts that care about that, and there's some just in this set. But you also get to return 2 creature cards from your graveyard, and it doesn't specify like the size of the creatures, the mana value, the power and toughness. It's just 2 creatures, put them in your hand. Untap with all your mana available. If you're able to cast this spell, that means you have at the very least 4 mana available, and straight away you get to start reapplying pressure. Put down hasty creatures, whatever the case might be. And not only that, you gain 2 and drain for 2. I think this is a freaking sweet little package for 4 mana in the right deck. It's obviously not like a broken card, but like if one of these like little tribal aggressive creature decks is to be a thing, I think something like this, and there's similar effects in green. It'll be more for the Selesnya one, where you get to like either directly reanimate something low powered to the battlefield. Usually those will be sorcery speed though, or at the very least get them back into your hand to build up again after some kind of a sweeper that isn't Sunfall, of course, because that means things will just be exiled. But any other kind of targeted removal, Brotherhood's End, smaller kind of sweeper, whatever, being able to restock your hand at the at the opponent's end step, with also that added little bonus. They didn't have to tag on that. I think probably if they didn't have the lose 2 life, gain 2 life little bit there, it would have costed 3 mana, not 4. But for 4 mana and instant speed, again, like love this card. Was my choice for favorite uncommon of the set in black. Which brings us, and this is again where I had some trouble. I was supposed my whole goal here was to just pick 1 from each rarity. In black, as far as rares, I really struggled. I couldn't just pick 1, I had to pick 2. So this is my least favorite of the 2, but it was close. And going back to my point just then about the lizards, this thing, I can't wait to figure out the exact play patterns, There's another card that we just got from the most recent spoilers, the last day of the season. It's like, if the opponent has lost life this turn, when this enters the battlefield, add a black and a red mana to your mana pool. Like, so you just play this on 1. On turn 2, you play your land. This targets the opponent, so it's a crime. It does 1 damage, which turns on all of those things that say if the opponent was dealt damage this turn, and then you just follow it up straight away with that 2-drop. You add 2 mana, you play another thing. I mean, this is committing a crime. It's got Offspring, so like better top deck in the late game than you'd think. If it didn't have the Offspring, you get this on turn 6. Now you get this on like turn 4, turn 5, whatever. You just pay the Offspring, then play a land. You're getting 2 pings. I think this Lizards deck's gonna be this like very slow, incremental, like trying to drain a little bit here and there wherever you can. Love those types of decks. First of all, the fact that it's going to be tribal makes it even better. Let me again bring up the point that this is an assassin, so it's one of the mercenary, assassin, rogue, from the Outlaws pairing. It commits a crime. Like, this card is so freaking sick. And imagine like having a hand where you have like 2 of them in your opening hand. You play 1 on turn 1. On turn 2, you play your second one first, then play a land. You ping for 2, swing for 1. Oh my god, or then with fetch lands, play your Fabled Passage, which has now been reprinted. Crack it, brings another land into play. Double ping, you got 2 of them into play. For each land that enters, you're doing 2 damage. There's already things in this set alone that like will amplify the amount that is dealt whenever non-combat damage is dealt. This just opens up like a whole bunch of, oh my god, I just love this card. Love this card. The quality of the 1-drops for each color, for each tribe, in each rarity, it feels like has just been from the set. Thank you, Wizards. It was really important that I think for this to be a success. and they really knocked it out of the park. But my actual favorite rare of the set, as far as black is concerned, definitely has to go to Scavenger's Talent. This card is insane. Okay? Gonna go in everything. Like, if there's a good Golgari Squirrels deck, you'll obviously play this. Whenever one or more creatures you control die, create a food token. That's gonna help turn on all of this scavenge mechanic. Is it scavenge? Where you have to either sack 3 things from, exile 3 things from your graveyard or sack a food. It's gonna help with like artifact stuff, like, cause food's an artifact. There's life gain because you sack in the food. There's already that witch that makes a food when it enters the battlefield. Minus X equal to the amount of life you've gained this turn. Like, even just that could go great. But it does not end there, okay? First of all, 1 mana. It's not legendary. You can have multiple of these on the battlefield. Very simple, easy investment. Turn 1, you just play this. Turn 2, there's a squirrel that's Golgari that enters the... It's a 3/2, ETBs, makes a food. When it dies, makes a food. Already just that, like, you play that, you play the next thing. Now you've got 2 foods. And then when it dies, you'll get another 2. That's like... Just, what the hell? How much food can you possibly flood in a sequence of turns? It's going to be bonkers. But it doesn't end there. Easily upgradable to Chapter 2 for only 2 more mana. Because a lot of these class enchantments, they've been a bit expensive, the level ups, and not so much worth what you get in every case. I think this one's the best costed. Just for 2 mana, whenever you sacrifice a permanent, target player mills 2 cards. So you can either make this like an alternate win con in your mill deck when you're playing, Dimir mill, Esper mill with Jace and whatnot, or you can mill yourself to fuel all of your graveyard shenanigans, your reanimator shenanigans. In Rakdos, here we go. I just got, I read Pedro's comment there. I made a post about this. Imagine just playing this with Urabrask's Forge. Okay? And you've leveled this. So, turn 1, play this. Turn 2, level this up to the 2nd level. Turn 3, play a Forge. Go to combat. You create a creature. At the end of turn, you sacrifice it. So it's dying. You get a food token, and you mill the opponent for 2. So now every time you swing it in with your, horror or whatever, Phyrexian horror token that the Forge makes, you're going to be getting a food and milling the opponent twice. Rakdos, sack, mill, food, the endless and cross synergies and things that I can do with this. Just the brewing juices start flowing. But it does not end there. Level 3, at the beginning of your end step, you may sacrifice 3 other non-land permanents. If you do, return a creature card from your graveyard. So it becomes like a Virtue of Loyalty that costed altogether like 3, 4, 5, 6 mana. So 1 less than Virtue of Loyalty. And like the steps to getting there are all cool. And then all of the steps getting there kind of help you fuel the last level. Because you're going to have all of these food things lying around. And now you can just use them to reanimate Atraxas and Atalis and, even that deck we played recently with the Vault of Vat of Rebirth. It's all the oil, again, goes with the Urabrask Forge, where you're putting oil counters on your Vat of Rebirth, and then you sack, remove 4 oil counters, and it cares about, you get the oil counters on the Vat based on how many things get sacrificed. So they just fit right with each other. You've just now got like an additional way of fueling that deck, which was kind of its problem. If you didn't find the Vat of Rebirth, or it got removed by artifact removal, now it's an enchantment, so it's slightly different. It's you can diversify the types of removal the opponent's going to need, and then you get to level 3, now you can just start sacrificing the food to bring back your Atalis or whatever Matraxas. And then by sacking those things to fuel the Scavenger's Talent, you're going to be putting oil counters on your Vat of Rebirth. Like, whatever. I think I've done way too much rambling about this card, but I think we can all understand how excited I am about it. It just immediately goes into so many things that already exist and is going to be directly fueling like other things going forwards that we still need to figure out what they are. Really cool design, amazing card. Which brings us, last but not least, to my pick for the best black mythic in the set. And that has to go to the season. Again, I'm sorry guys, I tried, but like the seasons, okay, the blue one, I didn't pick the blue season. Wasn't a huge fan of the blue season, but this again, going back to the virtues that I used as an example when I was doing the white video for Bloomburrow, is like, you know, when we have these cycles. So this is the cycle. There's one in every color. The white and the black one always just tend to be the immediately like stand out better ones, and then we'll later in the format we'll end up figuring out that actually the green one is the most playable one, or the one that enables the most busted deck, kind of like virtue of, you know, the green virtue. But again, the white and the black one are the most competitively priced. They're both 5 mana. The others are 6 and 7 mana and whatnot. And again, the modes. This is a freaking sweet little sweeper, man. Like, you know, we just did get a pretty damn good one in Deadly Cover-Up. But it's symmetrical in that if you don't really want to play your Deadly... Is it Deadly Cover-Up? Deadly Dispute? Deadly Dispute? It's the 5 mana black sweeper that we just got with Fathomless Descent, or whatever, you know. What's it called? It's not even called that. Oh my god. Collect Evidence 6. Nailed it. You don't want to play creatures yourself, or really many, and if you're also playing that card, because you don't want to sweep your own creatures. So it's mostly going to see play in like some kind of control deck, whereas Season of Loss here, it's similar to the Cruelty of Gix. No, Gix's Command, I beg your pardon. In that, each player sacrifices a creature. You don't have to... It's not destroy all creatures. So then, if you want, you can just go the full 5 paws, that you can pick 5 paws worth of modes. You just put all 5 into the first one there, and the opponent just destroys 5 of their creatures, and your creatures all stay on board. Like, by turn 5, there's very few decks that are going to have more than 5 creatures on the battlefield. So this is just effectively just going to be a sweeper for 5 mana, which is what they cost anyway in black, right? But if, you know, the versatility on this is insane, because draw a card for each creature you control that died this turn. Oh, I beg your pardon. Each player... Oh, that's... Oh, my God. Just forget everything I just said. Just forget everything I just said. Let's take it from the top. I completely misread this card. I'm so sorry. Okay, not as hyped. Not as hyped. That means we both, you know, each player sacrifices. I guess, you know, of course, you pick... You can put it in a situation where what you're sacrificing isn't as good as what they're sacrificing. But nah, I'm just way less high on this card than I was 1 minute ago. Ah, bugger. You know, this happens to the best of us. I should have read the card better before hitting record. Regardless. Now that makes sense with the second mode a lot more. Draw a card for each creature you control that died this turn. So you can pick essentially 2, 4. You can pick the second mode twice and the first mode twice and get up to... Sorry, it's only 5. So you pick, let's say, the first mode twice, and the second mode 2 plus 4 is 6. No, that's wrong. Okay, starting to like this card less and less, but let's get through this. So the final mode is each opponent loses X life, where X is the number of creature cards in your graveyard. Okay, I think when all is said and done, probably the mode on this that you're going to end up picking the most is going to be the final one. If you set up your deck correctly, that can be a massive freaking swing of life, right? You just fill your graveyard with creatures and then cast this thing and drain them a bunch. Okay, my apologies. You know, can we go back into Bloomburrow quickly here and see what my alternatives were in black? Because it was either going to be Maha, the Feathers Knight, its Feathers Knight, or Rottenmouth Viper, and I'm not a huge fan of either, even though they're great cards. They really are. I think probably Maha more than Rottenmouth Viper when all is said and done. But they just didn't. When I was initially thinking that this was going to be a one-sided type of sweeper thing, then that's why I ended up picking this one over the other two. Now that I'm a little less hot on Season of Lost, maybe Maha is my pick for the best mythic. There's some shenanigans here, right? Creatures your opponent control all have base and power and toughness 1. So then you can just follow, you play this in Rakdos, play like a Brotherhood's End. It becomes a really nice, like one, even if they had really strong creatures, now suddenly they're not. And you can just sweep them with a 3-mana sweeper, and it leaves all of your stuff alive. I love those types of things, which is why I picked the Black Season over this in the first place. So sad, End of Festivities just rotated when this gets legal. Yeah, but we've got, exactly, Tectonic Hazard. Oh my god, this is going to be actually really good. So, but there we go. Revised my pick. Let's say Maha is actually my favorite Black Mythic from the set. That is going to be it for this one. Thank you all so much for watching. As always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I'll be seeing you all in the next one with, WUBRG. Red is next. Stay tuned.